All right, we are live. Welcome to, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on the number.
304.
304 of Artcasters. We are over the 300. We've had our Frank Miller moment. And I'm really excited to have the guest we have tonight. He's been on before and very inspiring. And I think, especially if you guys are artists or creatives, you're going to find and get a lot out of this conversation. Not to stack the deck too bad. But before we introduce our guest, we'll do the typical kind of go around. And also, I always forget to mention this at the top, but I want to start mentioning this at the top of Artcasters. We get a lot of chats like going on, and quite often, like if you're watching the show, there might be a question you really want to get to like our guest or to us. And to highlight that question, feel free to super chat. It's a way to support the show, support our channels, and also like I will make this promise: if you guys super chat something, as long as it's not like super crazy or incendiary or like rude to other people, then like I will happily read whatever is super chatted. So if you have like a website or something you want to promote that's safe for work, then yeah, feel free to like throw it in as a super chat and we'll read it. So okay, that out of the way. So let's introduce ourselves. I guess you're on my channel. So if you guys haven't yet, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell. That way you get notifications whenever we're about to go live. And also, like, we usually mention this at the end of the show, but I'll mention it at the top. There's also a mailing list in the show notes, and that's for Artcasters. Our show bounces back and forth from Scott and Cory and my channels. So now that there's like 3 channels involved, it's a really good idea to make sure you're subscribed to that so you can get notified when we're about to go live. And go to Amazon and pick up my graphic novel, 2 Stories. And also, if you want to see what's coming out this May, you can go to joshuakemble.com and look for Jacob's Apartment, which is a graphic novel about dreams and life kind of interweaving with like living stuffed animals and all sorts of trippy, awesome stuff like that. So that's my stuff. Scott, where can everybody find your work?
You can find my work at circworks.com right now. If you're live, I hope maybe a little bit after the fact, but I've been meaning to take it down. But I've still got that Cyber Week special with 50% off all my digital products. That includes the comic toolkit, that includes the Hero Design Studio, that includes the comic book world builder, it includes my digital comics, it includes, there's some fonts up there. So yeah, definitely, check that out while it's 50% off. That sale only happens once a year at a time, and it's almost expired. The other thing I've got coming up, if you happen to be in Arizona, this will be on a Wednesday, which I've done one of these on Wednesday, but that's New Comic Book Day. So I'm going to be at Surprise Comics on the 22nd. That's the Wednesday before Christmas, and I'll be doing sketches and stuff like that, and selling some books. So if you want to if you happen to be in that area and you want to get a sketch from me, either sketch cover or whatever, sketch card, whatever you want, you can come down and they make a great gift. And I typically, that's the only time I really do sketches, is when I'm doing a store signing. So if that's something you want, and you happen to be in Arizona, or just call somebody who is in Arizona, send them some money and have them come by and talk to me, and I'll get you a sketch. Also, and the other thing I wanted to mention, because sometimes we wait till the end, but like Josh said, Cory is now an official Artcaster. Some of these episodes are going to be on his channel like next week. So make sure if you aren't already subscribed to Cory's channel that you do that, because you want to be subscribed to all 3 of our channels, so you always know when the Artcasters is going to be on and everything. So speaking of Cory, what do you got going on? Besides those fashionable glasses.
Hey, I'll just tell everybody, if you're squeamish, look away. I'll take my glasses off for a minute. So I blew a blood vessel in my eye, and this is why I'm wearing glasses. So look away if you don't want to see it. But it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's not a visual effect, you guys. That is real life eyeball there.
Yeah. So what I am doing is apparently just continuing the roller coaster of 2021 and breaking more things before we hit Christmas. But yeah, no, I'm just getting ready to launch a big project. I've got a team of about 15 artists, and we're going to do an animation in between January and April. And we're probably going to do kind of a breaking the chains thing like Jim and I did, where we live stream a lot of our meetings and stuff like that. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe and watch that. And if you want to see just me goofing around before I buckle down and get stuff, you can check stuff out on Instagram, because I'm just making weird looking stuff right now. So
that's why I'm getting all those Discord messages, just be on your Discord.
Yes, and you guys are welcome to join us if you want to jump in on. I'll extend an invitation to the three of you. I'd love to have you on for as little or as much as you want. But it's basically it's gonna be a live action with animation over the top. And so we're talking about we're just talking about augmented reality and the problem of human connection versus like digital connection. And so all the animated stuff, we're just going to go nuts with it. And so if you want to do a 2-second thing or whatever, I'd love to have you jump in. But yeah, that's why you're getting bombarded on the Discord, is because that's where I'm keeping track of everything.
So Chase Williams said Cory Kerr is taking all kinds of bodily injuries, but he's indestructible. And then she also said Corey's shades give a they look vibes, which fits.
Yeah, I think if I take the shades off, it's even more they live.
I love it. Cool. So I guess the link, thank you, Frank, for putting a link in the show notes. I guess I have to adjust the link for our mailing list. Okay, I'm excited to kind of introduce our guest. Our special guest is Gene Jimenez, which is we've had on the show like multiple times, and is just like a super inspiring, like one of the groundbreaking colorists in comics, like one of the earliest digital colorists, former art director of some pretty large companies, and just overall like really brilliant artist. And he has a really exciting project coming up that we're going to be talking about. And so that project's Tribal Force. And Gene, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Tribal Force? And yeah.
And anything you want to promote. Awesome. Which is probably Tribal Force, I'm guessing.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. This is so cool.
You're in the 3-timer club.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. You guys are gonna have like 9 channels, so and there's gonna be like 12 people up here, and then like by the time you get to your guest, it's like, all right, thanks for coming. It's so good. But I appreciate you. I appreciate the time and everything, and it's always great to just connect with you guys. And it's I've been looking through all of your work, and it's just so cool. So it's like it's good stuff, and it's like inspiring just to kind of open your books and or go on your sites and going, God, man, these guys are not only doing this, but they're doing it from a guttural level. They're not they're kind of paving their own way and with your guys' style and everything. So I appreciate that, and kudos on you guys for just sitting here and going deeper. So yeah, I'm the creator publisher of Machine Comics. Machine Comics started about 2 years ago, officially in January 2020, and we all know how that year went. So so officially we started, I guess you could say, about 6 months ago, because I had published my first book, Downtown, basically a graffiti writer figures out that he has a creative, what we call a creator power, to bring his graffiti to life and help fight and defend his inner city neighborhood. And my vision for Machine was really about having it talk about and tell stories of ancient wisdoms with street knowledge, as well as work with artists and creators that are just kind of outside the norm, and kind of especially guys that some mainstream guys more mainstream companies won't either take a chance on or are a little too edgy. So that was the idea. And oddly enough, it wasn't my first go around in publishing. You know, a friend of mine called me 6 months ago and said, "Hey, I have something, give me a call." So I called him back. But before we get to that story, really here, because, promoting this big thing. And I teased it a while back with you guys to say, we got this big thing coming up, and, and then all of a sudden we got the deal done, and it was really, really cool, which leads me back to my story. That friend of mine was actually named John Proudstar. So this is going back 25 years. I'm going to take you back to 1996. And the beginning of 96, I think it was in February, we had this little small publishing company, and the person, I was a creative director on it, and I was really kind of green. I was only like 3 years out of college, and I was already, bringing digital coloring to the comic book world, and it was really, really cool. And we were kind of had our own studio in this back lot in Costa Mesa somewhere, and it was awesome. And then this guy walked in, his name was John Proudstar, Native American, and I thought he was just one of the coolest and funniest guys I'd ever met. And he walked in with a partner, an artist friend of his named Ryan Huna Smith. And he says, "I want to do this. I have a full Native superhero team that I've made up. And as far as I know, it's the only superhero team of Native Americans by Native Americans." And that kind of hit me, because I knew then I was a Native American as well. I'm 64%, Native North American with all kinds of other things in me. But I was like, this is cool. It like struck me at my gut level. And I said, let's do this. And so we did. It was, we did one issue back then. And here's the crazy thing. I actually was going through some books today. I found my issue.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So let me see. Where's the camera? There we go. So this is the original. Here, let's do this. The original issue of Tribal Force came out in 1996. And we only got one issue done. This was the original issue here. And myself colored it, and one of my favorite colorists in the world, who I just, I think he's the cat's meow, a guy named Aaron Ricks. They call him Professor Ricks on Instagram. He was the other colorist, and he actually did that cover. Anyway, we colored it, and it was a big hit, because it was all Native American heroes created by Native Americans and published and designed by Native Americans. And we thought it was a big deal at the time. It went over really well. We had success with it. And then that little publishing company we had kind of went the way of all the 1990s independent companies, and we went out of business. Within a year or within 6 months of publishing that. And that left John Proudstar, the creator and writer and this brainchild, with this property. And he kind of went into the wild with it, because comics kind of from that point on, if those of you who remember it became a big roller coaster. Yep. And so it went up and down and all over the place. And that's where John went. He was trying to find a publisher. He went actually with 3 different people and couldn't find somebody to do it. So fast forward to 2014, he got a call from the Smithsonian Institute, and they said, yours was the first all Native American, and it just so happened to be published and created and designed by all Native Americans. And so they put him in their pop culture Native American collection with.
That's awesome.
So this particular issue is actually part of the Smithsonian collection, wow, which is really, really cool.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And so we got a little steam behind it then, but it still could not find the right person or the right publisher to kind of keep it going. And I just really, honestly, I got a call randomly because John and I stayed in touch over the years, and I was always cheering for every time I heard it's like, oh, he has a possibility with this new person. So that's great. And of course, in the back of my mind, I know I'm going, that is such the dream project. Working on it was cool. And having gone through all the self-development work I've done and my career and all that stuff from that time, I thought, God, man, I would love one more shot at that. And randomly, I got a call from him on just a random day, and he says, "Hey, I would really like to do this. I want to do this for the rest of my life." And of course, I just turned 50. I said, "Well, I wouldn't mind doing this for the next 50 years too."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, let's do it." I said, "But it's hard being out here as a single one-man band in self-publishing. So if we're going to do it, I would love to bring you on as a official partner to Machine Comics." And so Machine Comics is actually made up of myself and artists that actually drew Downtown #1, which is Scott Sirag, who's done a ton of amazing stuff over the years. Great working partner and one of the most creative illustrators I know. Anyway, I said, "You're going to come on, John, let's do this." And, he said, "Absolutely." So we finally got the deal done. Took a little while, but here we are. We have our first promo images up. We are prepping for a Kickstarter starting in April. And we are so excited. So Tribal Force will be coming back with we have a brand new artist doing the pencils. His name is Chris Williams. He's out of Pennsylvania. Some of you might know him from Batman and some other really cool, awesome projects that he's been up to. Right now, he's actually finishing up some of those big projects. And then January 1, he's on pencil for Tribal Force #1. So the promo pieces that have been out, those are the new images and the new characters that people have been seeing and commenting on. Those are all Chris Williams, and we're just excited. Now, getting back to John Proudstar, the creator and everything, you might recognize his name. His full name is John Santana Proudstar. If you're familiar with Hulu, and there's a show on there, it's really actually getting amazing reviews. A show called Reservation Dogs.
Yeah, produced by Taika Waititi.
Yes, absolutely. So
yeah, I've seen. I think I saw I saw at least most of the first season. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's really good. If you want to check out any single episode of that, check out episode number 6, because John Proudstar actually plays the dad in that series. He plays the dad of one of the girls' characters in there, and that episode 6 is just him and his daughter wandering around the forest and having some great dad moments. But John Proudstar has been an actor and an independent film producer for years. He actually started out, if you remember, there's a great little film called Young Guns. He was one of the stunt people. He was actually Lou Diamond Phillips' stuntman in that, and has done a lot of stunt work as well as independent film producing over the years. But he's a great actor, and I'm honored to call him friend. And and I think at some point you'll probably get a good chance to talk with him, because he's just fun, and he's probably the biggest Conan fan I can think of.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So every time I see him on social media, he's posting a new Conan cover that he got. So we're always sending that stuff back and forth with each other. So yeah. So that's what I've been up to. That's our big announcement. Tribal Force coming out on Kickstarter in April. Go to machinecomics.com, sign up for our mailing list so that we can let you know when it comes out. We're so excited about this. It's really, really going to be a fun project, and we're hoping it has legs to go a long time.
Yeah,
dude.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I just wanted to point out my own terrible pronunciation. I was already corrected by our buddy Frank in the chats on how to. Oh wait, hang on. Where was it?
It sounds like an H.
Yeah. So he said he basically pronounced corrected my terrible horrible pronunciation of your name. So I apologize too.
Josh, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'll just while you mention, I think it's Peter Laird, not Peter Liard.
Yeah, I know. Like you would think it was it's a problem I have with every name, including I swear I could get my own name pronunciation wrong, but I wanted to call that out and correct myself on it because why not? That is really exciting.
And that's why Gene just goes by Gene.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly the reason why I go by Gene.
The only reason I didn't put
I'm
just
sorry
Gene
to add to that reason.
because
years of having your last name butchered, you'll drop that name.
I already put. Oh my God! Here, so just quick aside, this is funny. So we went and played trivia the other night, or it was the day before Thanksgiving, and I put a reservation in at this Irish pub where we go to play trivia. And my brother gets there to get the table, and he says, "Do you have a table for Serkland?" And they look and they, no, we don't see that. How many people is it for? And it's for 8 people. And yeah, I've got this, and they put. They put Jerk Lane. I don't know if they got that. So that was our trivia team name that night, was Jerk Lane.
I love that.
Okay, I got a quick one. My 3-year-old, he's walking up the stairs with a basket full of toys, and my father-in-law is named Doug, and he hasn't quite figured that out yet, and so he really struggled with his name. He said, Duck,
Yeah.
you want to help me with this basket? Duck.
That's so good. Awesome. So my sister's name is Lavender, like the color lavender.
Mm-hmm.
And we were ordering like Starbucks coffee, and the person at Starbucks reads it and goes, "Slab of deer." Slab of deer. So like I still to this day call her Slab of Deer. Anyhow. All right. Well, anyhow, like I just, there's so much to get into on this, but it's like, to me, it's kind of incredible that, first off, that like the book is going to see the light of day again, which is really cool, and like kind of have a refresh. But it's also just like, it's so inspiring that like you took a risk and kind of went for that book in the first place, just kind of seeing a hole in the market and a need for it, you know? I think that's really cool, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's, like I said, it's kind of like when you're young and you're just out there grinding away, you know, and I know this because I just went to my first as an exhibitor, and I've gone to several as, you know, just as a fan and whatnot, walking around, but just got back from San Diego as an exhibitor, which I hadn't been to in 25 years as an exhibitor, which is a completely different experience. But seeing young artists and seeing that fire and that endless energy, and that, you know, it's almost like you're just running around and just grabbing and you know, your kid in a candy store when you actually have a little bit of success, or you have people that come and ask you, "Hey, come work with me." And, you know, we were green back then. We were just doing it because we, you know, hey, there's something to work on. Let's go do this. And we had this little small studio company, and it was really, really awesome. And we had some great guys in studio, Aaron Ricks being one of them, and guys like Bill McAvoy and Scott Sirag was around at that time, as well as a guy named Ken Bustamante. Steve Furco was in and out of the studio every now and then. You know his name from just the incredible colors that he does. But we were kind of, you know, this little engine that could, and then all of a sudden, you know, we. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it was weird. I got a weird buzz in my ear. But anyway, so at the time, you know, we're just like, okay, yeah, let's just work on that. And we think it's going to last forever. And then all of a sudden, you know, boom, industry hits, things change direction. And we kind of shut that studio down, and we, you know, went into fashion and street fashion and all kinds of other things. And we took everybody with us and all that. But, and then all of a sudden, you know, several years down the road, you kind of wake up and go, man, did we leave, you know, personally, I had to look at myself and go, did I leave something behind that really actually could have been really something? When you start realizing what matters, you know, because you're just scrapping at that time, and you're just kind of going through and trying to get stuff underneath your belt. And you're not really present to, you know, the deeper meaning of some of the stuff that you're working on. And as I went along, I tell you, every other month, the past 25 years, that's something that itched at me. This particular title, you know, and I knew that, and something inside said, this is going to come around again. And I hope it does. And if it doesn't, I'm okay with it. But man, it would be really great, because I really want to, you know, I think I shortchanged myself, and I felt like I just felt like there was something not finished there for me. You know, and after going, like I said, after going through a lot of self-development work and a lot of things that mattered to me, I realized a project like this did, there's a couple other projects that, my heart felt was going to, when they come up and come around, absolutely, I'm going to be about them. But now that this is right here in front of my lap, I'm like, absolutely, I'm not going to shortchange this again, I know artists that would love to have a second shot at things, that would love to, hey, I, did that one issue or did a couple issues here or there or whatnot, especially in the comic books world,
Yeah.
I know a lot of these guys that go, oh, that was so good. And, I wish I had another shot at something like that. So yeah, I feel blessed. I feel, I sometimes I wake up and I see a new image come up from Chris or, a new page. I'm just like, oh, I can't believe this is so good. I'm so excited, and back then, you're just like, oh, I hope I can make rent.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's really not about the money, and it is about the money because, we want to keep it going for as long as possible. But at the same time, it's like, this has so much more value, to all of us than, because it means something. So, you can go back and look at the whole thing and say, hey, this is the first Native American comic. And then you look when Indigenous Con came up, which is the New Mexico Comic-Con about all Indigenous, all the ones that are created and actually getting recognition in all the Native American comics kind of all started with this one.
Yeah.
Before that, they weren't really on the map or they weren't really getting any national attention. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah. I was kind of curious, like what's out there is, I mean, I heard you mention about that Native American Comic Convention before, but I was kind of curious what other titles are out there, because I mean, I still, even if there's a little more representation nowadays, I still think I think this is going to be a hit, this project. I think there's so many people that this is going to resonate with, and who either maybe remember the first issue and wanted more and didn't get it, or if it's something new to them. So I'm just kind of curious what else is really out there. Are you aware of other comics featuring Native Americans? Are there I know this is the first, but are there other comics out there with like full Native American casts? Or
yeah, there's several actually great Native American creators, and I don't want to peg them as Native American creators either. It's like they're just really good comic book people. These are good comic artists and good comic art storytellers. And what I discovered, and I was talking with a friend of mine, and actually this is last week, and we were talking about, I'm primarily identifying the Latino market for myself, but I'm 64% Native American, so or Native North American. So that kind of brings a whole different dynamic to it. But we were talking, it's like, would people say, okay, is this a Native American thing, or is it a Latino thing, or even a Black thing, or whatever it is? He said the challenge you start running into is you start being identified, okay, you're going to make Latino comics, or you're going to make Native American comics, or you're going to make, and that was the one thing I really wanted to say, yeah, and I'm a comic book creator.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make comic book creators because I am a, Native American, but I'm still just a comic creator, that's who I am. And so I'm going, yes, my first comic is about a Latino kid, inner city graffiti writer. My next one's actually about, a samurai, a complete samurai story during the Edo period, writing giant koi fish that fly around. So they ride koi fish instead of, so everything's kind of floaty world and all that stuff. But it's all samurai, and it's all, very well researched in the samurai market. So,
well, also, a few things about koi fish too. I've been to your house. If anyone doesn't know, Gene has this awesome koi fish pond. It is just like amazing. He raises them and everything. Yeah. So is this a book that you wrote? Because obviously that would be another passion of yours. So I can see why you'd be doing a book with that. Yeah,
that's 100% my creation. Awesome. I have 3 issues written, and actually, I was actually going to, the plan was, if I didn't get that call 6 months ago, I'd be here talking about that, because I was like, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to draw, and I want to do this thing from A to Z, versus trying to find a amazing illustrator and work with that. So now that is my doodle time, still teaching myself how to draw, but I give, everything. Now I'm full into Tribal Force and actually gonna do probably issue 2 and 3 of Downtown as well before we even come back to this other one. And then Scott Sirag has a book that he's working on, a post-apocalyptic elves and really cool stuff that is, very Scott Sirag, if you know him.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming from Machine Comics. So I wasn't sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you were just. I mean, obviously, I knew about Tribal Force coming up, but I didn't know if it was just sort of that plus Downtown. But it sounds like you got some other cool stuff in the works. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, it's been like I feel very lucky and blessed, and it's not that. The funny thing is I think we were better funded 25 years ago when we had when we said we had no money, but it was I think I think you get to a certain point as a creator, as an artist, where you just say, I can have this happen, and I'm going to make it happen, and then go ahead and jump off the cliff, and then sew your parachute on the way down. And if I know, well, it's my opinion that most great creators and artists do that anyway. And that they've learned to, in their career, just say, I'm going to go create this and figure out how to have it happen on the way.
Yeah, dude. I think like what you were mentioning too about sort of that being something you kind of realize into a career, it's like definitely rings true to me, because I spent a lot of my career, like early career, just trying to kind of get my feet in the door and just get professional work. And then like you were totally right. Like a lot of it's just like, okay, get the rent covered, all of that. But it is weird because like when you get really cool projects and you've been on before. So like, I really encourage everybody to kind of check out previous episodes with Gene on as well. He's had like a very storied, very thorough, like very insanely awesome career. But it's like one of the things that you do is you start picking up these really sexy jobs that like you're vying for the whole time. Yeah. And like, at least for me, when I got some of those jobs, like I just had this realization of like, wait a minute, like this isn't really that fulfilling. And the things I'm most proud of are like those things that are the heartfelt things that I kind of poured my soul into. Those are the things that like, whether they made money or not, like that I look back on and I'm like really highly proud of. And so like now, like if I have time or the ability, I'm going to totally lean into those kinds of projects, like those soul fulfilling projects. Cause like, yeah, I mean, I've got, a basis for income. And so it's like, if I'm doing stuff outside of that, like I 100% am going to lean into it. And another thing that I've realized like this year, and then I obviously want to bring it back to you, but it's like, I've had a couple opportunities come up where I'm like, in my head, I was like, I'm just too busy to kind of say yes to this. But all of them are tied into this comics thing that I'm really passionate about. And they're all projects that I'm very passionate about and like are that like heartfelt, like soul feeding stuff. And so instead of actually just said yes, and I'm going to make it work, because it's like 2 major doors open for me. And I think that's what it kind of sounds like with this, where it's like if a door opens, like you and it's an opportunity that's going to be like soul feeding, like you got to like kick that door open and just run through it. Cause like, those opportunities may not come again. And, or if they do, like they might come like years and years down the road. So everything you were saying just rings so true to me. And is very inspiring and I think important.
You there, Gene? Yeah, we can't hear you, Gene. Yeah, we heard some kind of.
Yeah, I heard like an airplane noise.
Yeah. Your battery? Okay. So while Gene's working on a setup, I don't know. Cory's been kind of silent, so I didn't know. Did you have anything you wanted to chime in on, Cory, when we get Gene back? Or
I'm terrible at this point because I'm just so fascinated and
okay.
Everything you're saying is so interesting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to jump in and then.
No, I mean I'm very interested in kind of plans moving forward. Is this I'll fire off just a few questions. You can answer whatever you like, but Is your intention for this to be like a monthly floppy that gets collected later? Are you going to keep the same team on the whole time? And I'm very curious about like your marketing efforts, like what specifically you're doing to reach out like B2B and B2C. So any of those, this is just a cool project.
No, awesome. Can you hear me now? How's that?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. I have like, much like you guys, probably like 9 different mics and 7 different systems. So it's just like unplug and do something else. So, you know what's crazy? I think the first thing and the harsh reality of it, it really kind of hit me when I started preparing for San Diego. Is last time I went, I actually had a crew of minimum 9 guys. Every time I've been there, I've had half the booth is set up and blah blah blah. But when you go as an independent, and there I am, the one-man band showing up, it's a challenge. It was a challenge for me. It was a challenge for to kind of figure out, okay, I got to do this and make it happen myself after X amount of years of having so much support. And this is where I kind of went to, I questioned myself, did I show enough gratitude to people along the way? Did I thank them enough? Did I, was I appreciative enough? And when you get to a point in your, on a lot of the adventures that I had or that I've been through, you start realizing, like Josh was talking about, there's things that matter and there's projects that come up. And then you also want to, realize that in the moment, the people that are around you and to be gracious and grateful for them, because they're either supporting you so that you can create what you're passionate about, or they're in the same boat as you and they just want to make stuff happen with you. They want to just make, be about it as much as you are. Comics is a really weird, it's an off art, still here in the U.S. Whereas in other, like we mentioned this before, but other countries you can actually check the artist box, on your taxes. Whereas here there isn't that. You're self-employed, but artists is there's always you always have to have that plan B. So in preparing for San Diego, being by yourself and everything, it's like I kind of felt lonely, and I realized I was terrible at marketing. I'm really terrible at marketing myself. I can make it look good, but as far as reaching out to people and asking for support or asking, say, hey, can you do this? I'm not that good. I'll be first to admit it. Our marketing efforts are really just grassroots. We're trying to get out to as many people as possible. That's one of the reasons why I went to San Diego and just say, hey, we're here. This is, what we're going to be up to. John's doing his thing on his end, getting the word out with his people. And as we get closer and we start ramping it up the first part of the year, you're going to hopefully see a lot more, there's some social media we're going to be doing, but really it just comes through the Kickstarter, forum and then getting as much people and trying to get as much people eyeballing that as possible.
I love that. I also like that rings really close to me because I just got back from LA Comic-Con and it had been a long time since I had really conventioned. And so I ended up like splitting the table with my friend Chris, who we've had on as a guest because he's just like a genius at conventioning. And one of the cool things about that, because of the weakness in marketing thing, right, was I do my pitch for my book, and my buddy is like a guy I went to art school with. So he's like one of those friends that you turn to when you want like a real honest critique. Like he and I used to work on like t-shirts together, and he'd just be like, that's a terrible concept. He's like that friend who will tell you when you've got like crap on your face, like, and so he actually gave me like 2 tips on my pitch. And the second I changed, it was like changing like 2 words. And the second I changed it, like, boom, like I started selling books more. And I was so thankful for having that feedback. But it also is like, I think conventioning I was reminded of the fact, and I'm curious if you have this like feeling too, but I was kind of reminded of the fact that like conventioning is a very humble experience, like in a good way. It's like being at a convention you're sort of surrounded by all these brilliant artists who are all kind of in the industry. And you're pretty much just pitching yourself to complete strangers quite often. And, you know, even when you have a successful con, like it still feels like very humbling, like, because there's a, you know, for every one person who stops by your booth, there are like 3 people who just walk by and could care less, you know. It's a very good experience in that sense, but it's also like really cool. And it is, I think what you were saying about valuing people, it is really important to value people. And that actually reminds me, like, we had a listener, an Artcasters listener, and I promised I'd shout him out. So I'm shouting him out right now. But Jimmy Limon, and I think I mispronounced that too. But if I got your name pronounced wrong, just correct me and give me crap. But he said he listens all the time and he doesn't interact in the chats, which I totally get because I listen to stuff in the background when I'm working that I don't comment on. But yeah, he came by and like he was a huge Artcasters fan and like brought my book and stuff like that. And like I think it is like the people who value what you do, you need to kind of give those people value in return, like and kind of understand it for like the miracle it is, because we're kind of in this this scenario where we're sharing art, you know, and like we're sharing our work and we're bearing our soul. And when there's people who will kind of be with you and like, you know, accept that, like that's a really cool thing. So anyhow, sorry, that's just rung so true to like, but like for you, like, what do you think? So it's been a while since you've done a con. I'm kind of curious, and I don't want to lead you too much down the like con route, but I am curious, like what kind of change you saw between like, I mean, you did mention like the kind of organization, having a whole crew as opposed to like more pared down and indie kind of scenario, but just as a con in general, you know, how had you noticed it changed? And just out of curiosity also, how did they like handle the whole COVID thing? Because LA did a pretty good job. I was impressed, but I'm kind of curious how San Diego did.
Actually, I was more impressed than I thought it would be with San Diego. First of all, you know, if anyone's ever been to San Diego, it is 250,000 of your closest friends trying to get into 4 doors, and then you're all walking the con together, arm in arm, sweaty, and you know, it's really like I would compare it to those scenes that you see in like India, where just masses of people and kind of like, you know, it's like you're walking through Wembley Stadium as Live Aid is going on, and it's just like this. I mean, that's San Diego, and you know that going in, and you're like, do I really want to walk the floor because it's so crowded? And I thought San Diego, you know, they did a great job of. It was probably maybe 1/16 of that crowd there. It was really spaced out. It was not a lot of, you know, it felt very, very homegrown. Now, a lot of the bigger companies weren't there. You know, Marvel barely had a presence, and everyone had this really slimmed down presence. And the show floor was maybe a quarter, maybe a third of the size of the regular San Diego show. So they kept it really slim as well. You know, you had to have full vaccination and, you know, testing and everything and proof of vaccination before you went in. So, and they were strict on it. They were announcing 3 or 4 times a day, masks on, above your nose, how to wear the mask, you know, and they were, you know, they had people going around checking. And so I thought they did a great job as far as safety and keeping people, you know, they didn't want to, the last thing I think really they wanted was to be like, you know, a super spreader event. And,
Yeah.
And so that's like everyone's, you know, worst nightmare right now is be known as a super spreader event versus a good show. I thought they did a pretty good job with that. And then, you know, with the con thing, you're absolutely right. You're sitting there, you know, and I have a lot of experience because, you know, I'm also a fine artist. And I've been in a gallery, and it is brutal when you put your, you know, your heart and soul on the wall, and you're sitting there, and people are just walking, saying nothing, walking by, you know, and it's like you realize that's my heart and soul on the wall, and you're just like,
yeah,
and it's a challenge, it's grueling, and I think that's one of the things that artists kind of use or should use as, you know, I've had this conversation with the past several years, just noticing that there's always this pressure point. There's always this boiling point. There's these instances of something that creates a pressure situation for artists, and then from that they actually create.
Ooh,
You know,
I love it.
You look at LA just as a whole, and you wonder why so many, you know, great creatives come out of there. Well, LA is a crappy place to live. You know,
Yes.
there's people living on top of each other. You can't get from one side of the city to another without getting in either a traffic jam or just not being able to get there. You know, you're going to go to an acting gig and there's 75 other people trying to get the same part. So there's this boiling point of how you're going to make ends meet, how you're going to make it, how you're going to survive, how you're going to do all this. And so that actually breeds creativity. And when I think it's for artists, especially comic book artists, when you go to a public scene and people either ignore you completely or go, wow, you know, if you'll have someone come up to your booth and go, oh my God, this is really changing my day. This is so awesome. And you're just like, all right, well, yeah, they totally get it. And then they go to the person right next to you and they go, wow, oh man, this is really changing my day. There's a lot, you know, and you're going through this, like, you know, it's like, am I really supposed to be here?
Yeah.
And then in the next moment, it's like, of course I'm supposed to be here. This made this person's day. And then the next moment, it's like, I don't know if I'm really supposed to be here. So it's this roller coaster, but that's what it is to be an artist. That's that courage that people talk about. That's that, you know, people go, wow, you know, that's, I think, part of the mystique, where you kind of develop that thick skin and then you use that energy and that pressure cooker instances, or that whatever that is, to fuel you forward. And some artists don't use that. And I'll be the first to admit it. Sometimes it knocks you down and it knocks you back, or it knocks you over, and you go, well, you know, that really wasn't my medium anyway. I'm just going to go this way and do this. I'll go to, you know, and a lot of parents trying to protect their kids, going, well, see, told you, you know, you can't handle that pressure cooker, so why don't we go to plan B and you get a job in your dad's law firm, you know? So I think that's the beautiful thing about art, and because it has that, you put yourself out there and it just takes one other people to connect it with whatever you put out there to make it art.
Dude, yeah. And like the thing you were also mentioning, there's I really think this is important to highlight too, especially if like anybody's listening and you guys haven't done a con or haven't done one in a while. First off, like after the crazy like amount of shutdowns we've been dealing with, like we've all been isolated and kind of in our own little bubbles, and it's like, I think it's important that happened, right, for our safety and stuff. But there was something really magical about being at a big building with just like all your people. Like, it's like, these are all the geeks, like they all came out of the woodworks, and they're of all kind of variety and all shapes and sizes, and they're all, you know, in this building to kind of mutually like do this cool thing. And there's also something like just so amazing about like when you're boothing next to so many creatives. And I had forgotten this because, like I said, it's been a while. But like there's an energy you get after a con. Like you're totally exhausted because it's like you're sitting there all day, like at a table. And like especially when you're having traffic, right? Because you're running through your pitch line like 50 times and like trying to keep your energy so like you can kind of translate your excitement about what you're working on and what you made to the people who are checking you out. Because you don't want to like disappoint them and just be like, yeah, I make stuff, you know, this is some, you know. So like you're exerting a lot of energy, so you're usually pretty exhausted. But like I swear, like the day I got home, I like physically felt exhausted. I'm definitely at an age where like my back was feeling it because I don't do cons sitting. I stand, you know. But I did have like I felt like energy, like I got gas in my tank, because it's like I was seeing so many cool artists and so much inspiration there, and like you're right too, like just seeing other people too. And I think it's also so important for people to realize like that's also a good way to remember what's possible, right? Because you're going to see guys at all levels, like, you know, and like all of them are just people, you know. Like, so it's like it's really inspiring too. I found it just like really invigorating, and I think that's a cool thing too about cons. You know, you get that energy, just that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm did I miss this or whatever? When is Tribal Force? Like, when are you guys thinking about like launching it?
So the
You said April Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, the Kickstarter we're planning right now is for April of next year, and we'll have some build up to it. This is kind of a new, Chris is starting pencils in January because he's been under contract doing a bunch of cool stuff. And if you haven't checked his stuff out, he's C-Dub on Instagram. His stuff is really, I'm excited to work with him on it. And he has an inker named Jake, who is just killer. And so we have the promo piece that's out right now, which is the first thing kind of we've done together. But I have a bunch of, actually, the crazy thing is John has about 8 issues of Tribal Force written and plotted out and stuff. And so we're ahead of the game on that. And now it comes down to, okay, working this back into, making some story adjustments. And he wanted to kind of redo issue 1, and because it kind of introduces the characters. The one that we did was kind of a trimmed down version of it. So bless you.
Thank you.
The issue 1 that we're going to be doing is an expanded version of the original story, with a couple new characters that make more sense to the storyline. And like we only had, I think, 21 pages. 19. We started at 19, and then it went up to 26, and then we had to cut it back to 21 pages for the first issue. And so John actually did it right this time. He put in a lot more of the background and why these characters are doing what they're doing and what they're standing for from a Native American perspective, and how they see the world and how they're interacting with the entities that are, a threat to their culture and civilization and whatnot. So it's fantastic. But yeah, so April 2022 that's when our target date is, and we'll keep everyone up to date. I'm pretty clear that we're going to not only meet that, but then when we get there, we're going to have a kind of a parade on our hands. So
yeah, I see big things. Yeah, I was going to kind of ask that before you started to get into it. And obviously there's some spoilers and stuff you don't want to talk about, but I'm just curious, having a book that came out in the 90s, and I know that you guys have created some new characters for this. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you come back to it? And how do you approach it with the way, like, times have changed, or maybe haven't, or, maybe more things change, more they stay the same, but, or the idea of, well, yeah, maybe we need a new character to talk about this, or just because the new designs I've seen, or how you go about maybe updating some of the original designs. How much of that have you guys like discussed? I assume you're in the loop with all of that, right?
yeah, so I've actually gotten the privilege to read several of the scripts so far, and the biggest thing I see what John has done is, you got to remember, when it was first created, there was no such thing as the internet. So
right.
That's a big deal. You have an entire almost 2 generations of comic book fan and kids that are coming up, and so you have a lot more, not only information, but technology is actually integrated a lot more into people's lives, and so and the world kind of got bigger and smaller at the same time with the internet, with the amount of information that's out there. People are a lot more aware of what's going on Standing Rock, what's going on with the pipelines that have come down through. People are a lot more aware that, the girl that went missing, the entire nation, went looking for her and everything like that. Well, because she was a Caucasian person, but people don't realize, 738 average Native American women go missing every year. When that got out there, all of a sudden people are taking notice. And it's because of this, the internet, with the amount of information that goes on today, you got to actually speak and write. And this is what I love what John did with it, is he kind of opened the doors for technology to come in and be a part of it all. So when people see some of the new art and how they're, you know, they're addressing it, it's not just, you know, bad guys show up. There's actually a Death Star, you know, so to speak. There's actually decisions being made in the background, and you actually get to see a lot of how that technology and communications happen, and how our heroes are kind of have to deal with that, because they are Native American heroes. They're not using technology. They're not using, you know, they're using their ways. They're using, you know, the ways of ancient rituals and how to communicate, and, you know, and how that stands up to what we would call false or technological things that, you know, Native Americans still don't have. Now, here's the crazy thing. I was at, you know, San Diego, and I got to meet a guy who's actually in charge of getting internet to tribal lands in pretty much on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
That's his job. And most of the reservations don't have the internet.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's my parents lived on the Hopi reservation for the last couple of years, and we went and visited them. There's some incredible artists out there, and they can't get their work out because not only some of them, you know, some of them, you know, are living quite well, but some of them are living, you know, dirt floors in a single room, you know, hot, and the electricity that they have is, you know, is kind of like a daisy chain of extension cords off of, you know. And there was this guy I bought a bunch of his Kachina dolls, and he's an incredible craftsman. And I'm just like, you know, the internet would change this guy's life.
Yeah.
If we could just get him, you know, access to Etsy and you know, and some things like that, because he's doing amazing work, and not only is the work great, but he's got, you know, he's carrying on the tradition of thousands of years of oral storytelling, you know, coupled with these sculpture and carvings that he's doing, and his only outlet is to physically meet people face to face. And I was like, oh man, this would just be so incredible for this guy if he could get that stuff out there electronically.
Yeah, I mean, there's 1,000 of those guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. When I first started talking to this particular person I met, great conversation, because, you know, we remember when they came down our streets and they dug and they put the T1 lines in. You know, they put the what's it called? What is it? Basically, they put cable in.
Fiber
optics.
Fiber optics, right?
Yeah.
But people don't realize when they got to the reservation, they just kind of went around.
Oh.
Because it was way easier to do that than actually dealing with what they interpreted as a sovereign nation that doesn't want to be dealt with. You know, and so they just, let's just go around. Well, you go around, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, not only do they need internet, you know, for emergency and education and everything like that, but it would support greatly for AT&T to, you know, put this internet there. And it's like, well, we can't. Why not? Well, because that fiber optic line goes for 50 miles, and you can't break that for another 50 miles. So you have to go up where it breaks and connects to a new 50-mile line, and then dig across and then dig back. You know, so for every one reservation that wants it, or section reservation, you have to do that, and you have to find where that break is. And that's just a lot of, you know, so quote unquote taxpayer money that they're not going to spend. You know, and so now you have an entire several generations that don't have access to the internet or technology.
Wow, I had no idea of that.
Yeah, and this is a type of, you know, issues and things that you have these heroes looking at from their point of view. It's like,
right,
they're, you know, you have our heroes dealing with guided missiles, computer, and everything, and they're out there with just their spirit and their, you know, their bravery and trying to do the right thing for their people. Yeah, that's a big story in and of itself.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm excited for that, and I think it's important to have like stories from from all walks of life. Like I really think that yeah, I like for instance, like that I was boothing with my friend Chris, and he's Japanese, right? And we had like a reviewer stop by and like interview him, and she's trying to highlight Asian American creators. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. Like I actually think that needs to like be a bigger thing. Like it's there's a lot of artists that don't get acknowledged or seen, or stories that don't get told, and I think we're so much richer for it when those stories do get told, and I just seeing that movement in comics in general, and then also just seeing people like take a risk on it too, because like a lot of why the kind of hegemonic thing happens in comics and stuff is because businesses are risk averse, right? And so they want to cater to like the majority all the time. And I think that's just the more we can kind of move a little bit away from that and make stuff that kind of represents diverse voices, and then that is presented to like the public in general, I think it tends to work out well. It tends to enrich stories. I just think it's such a good thing,
Yeah, and I mean it's one of the things that that de-radicalizes a lot of those people that might have gotten swept up into horrible thinking early on. I forget the guy's name, but he former white supremacist, and then kind of had a record shop and started meeting the people that he was taught to hate, and he's like, these guys aren't anything like what I've been told. And so now he runs an organization that helps people like kind of deprogram themselves from that stuff. And he says the most important thing that he does is just like, you hate Arabs, well, here's like an Arab family, like let's have dinner with them, and like hear their stories and listen to their things. And then like if you grow up with stories of other cultures, then those things don't seem scary or foreign or weird or whatever. It's just part of the narrative of your childhood. And so like the more stories from different cultures that we can get out there, I think significantly helps so many different aspects of things. It's so important. And I get bored of, I'm just tired of, I like stories from all kinds of different things, but I'm just tired of like the same white guy story. It's like it's been told. It's fine. There's plenty of it out there. We're not missing anything. Give me some different cultures and some different outlooks on stuff. Anyway, it's interesting. I wrote an illustrated a children's book of a Japanese fairy tale, and one of the most fascinating things about it was the different types of thinking of symbolism and things from different cultures. And I was so used to, like Western European kind of fairy tales that I was like, oh, this is so much cooler, like to think about things this way and to like not have to over explain things. Like there's one character that is just a bird, and the bird is a fairy, and there's nothing in there where you have to go in and say, and this is how this works or whatever. It's just accepted. That type of thing is just part of storytelling. And I don't know, I'm always interested in diverse stories and different things from different cultures, because there's so much good that can come from it. And so it's really awesome that you're doing this. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that became really clear to me, I think, in the past several years was, when I first started as a fine artist, I had that one simple goal of, I just want to make a difference with one person. That was it. If I make it now, in order to do that, I don't know who that person is, so I'm going to have to reach as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of stayed on that track mentally and I think spiritually to, in my comic work and my photography and all this, everything else I create, to really reach, for a mass, but really be present to the individual. And then when this came up and, started doing marketing and started having the voice behind, what is tribal forest, and then, re-identifying, it's like, oh, yeah, of course, I didn't think of my downtown as a Latino character because that's just who I am, and now all of a sudden there's a Latino creator that has created this Latino character, and my studio is located in downtown Santa Ana, which has this, big, a great artist community, at least those of us that have survived the pandemic so far. But it's also, under the threat of what they would term as gentrification, So people ask me, so what's your comic book about? And most of the time I say, well, graffiti artist brings his graffiti to life to fight gentrification, and it's not so much that, it's that he's protecting his home, protecting his neighborhood. But it's present for me because it's where my studio is. You have, new developments coming in, new apartments and all that stuff coming in. And I think, one, I'm not against all that development to happen. It's just because I know some of these developers that have come in and whatnot. I get to, I'm on the board down there. So the great thing about it is, they're just people, and people make mistakes. But when they get to me, I'm kind of like the canary in their coal mine and says, hey, you do realize, you're going to be coming in and saying this is a great cultural neighborhood, and then you have all this stuff and, whatnot. And then they get there, and in you building that thing or in you displacing the culture, that culture is not going to be there. So you're going to need to change your sales page. And the look on their faces when I tell people this, and especially since these guys are just like horrified, it's like, oh, that's how it works. Yeah, because you're outpricing the culture that's here. So, so there's a great lesson for, people that like, now that there's culture rich, I want to go be there and be part of that culture. It's like, well, not if you get rid of that culture.
Yeah.
Not if it's like, and I think and that's just kind of a microscope of kind of like the way, a lot of Americans, say, well, we're bringing culture here. It's like, well, there was already culture here.
Yeah.
Culture here, and, Japan will argue the same thing. You have these ancient cultures around the world, which is, a big reason why, besides my love of koi, which is a big reason why, like I said, I wanted Machine Comics really to do ancient wisdom. And you go to the ancient cultures, there's a lot of beautiful wisdom there. It's pretty much all humanity needs. There's not a lot of technological breakthrough when it comes to wisdom in general. But it really does come down to, okay, I want to be a creator, and that I'm Latino or that I'm Native American or that I'm Japanese, I think is, I think it's kind of a bonus. What I really loved the other day was seeing Jim Lee on Sesame Street, introducing the new Asian puppet.
Oh, really? Interesting.
They just got a new character, and she's all rock and roll and skateboarding and all this stuff, and she's really, really cool and everything. But Jim Lee was on there, and when I first got into comics and, was starting to follow, I had no idea that Jim Lee was Asian. I just thought this guy was just a great, creator. And I think that had a big influence on how I approach who I like and what I like to look at. Like, I'm not going to look at that person. Just show me what they should do,
Yeah.
Show me what their vibe is, what they're, look at that. And I'd rather be known as, somebody that produces great art versus a Latino that can produce art, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we've had him on too, but my buddy Javier Hernandez, he helped start the Latino Comics Festival, which is like really a cool event. And I think he's finally kind of pulling back and retiring from running it, or co-running it. But he's talked about that too, like where there's like this sort of, it's like a tension because you at one point you want to represent who you are in the culture, that maybe you feel is underrepresented. But on the other hand, you don't want to feel like everything you do has to be like a paragraph about your culture as opposed to just being like art, it's like, I think it is a hard tension to carry, where it's like, on one hand, you kind of want to properly represent and you feel a responsibility. And on the other, it's like, you just kind of want to make some cool art, like that's gotta be a really interesting tension to kind of, cause like, I don't often get interviewed and have somebody go like, so, like your ancient ancestors came from this strange area of England. How do you feel you're representing, like, I don't get that in interviews. I just get people talking about my art. And like, so I guess I'm just saying, like, I could see that tension, like how that could be like a mix of like, kind of like good to talk about and fun to talk about and fun to represent, but also like, come on, I'm just making art, like, anyhow.
Yeah. It's a challenge sometimes, especially, and my wife will tell you this, it's a different mentality. Our world has kind of woken up to this because we've actually slowed down and started looking at each other. And I think that's a good thing.
Hell yeah.
And especially for artists to kind of realize, kind of not lose touch with who you are. And at the same time, I can tell you personally, on more than one occasion, coming out of a fancy restaurant and somebody throws me their keys to go get their car.
Oh my gosh.
So that has happened several times because I live in Southern California and go to dinner in Laguna Beach, and not saying that Laguna Beach is a bunch of racists. I have a bunch of beautiful friends down there and they're really awesome, but it's just the mentality of some people as the way it was. And like I said, I don't want to be known as that Latino artist. I want to be known as an artist. I want to be known as a creator and a comic book creator, and that was proud and honored to represent his heritage and whatnot. But if you're gonna go out looking for my books, don't try not to draw yourself over to the Latino or Mexican section or the Native American section. I'll be in the main bin.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and you touched on a number of different cultures, just like what you're talking about with the samurai. And I've seen a lot of your fine art has a lot of Asian influence in it as well. So I mean, it's to me, it's kind of really just what you not only where you come from, but what you like, what your interests are, and being open to other cultures and bringing those in. I think that's pretty amazing.
Well, and it makes sense because none of us, no matter what our background is, are easily defined by like a physical characteristic, like all white people are the same, all black people are the same, all Mexicans are the same. That's like such a stupid thought, like there are as many individuals in every ethnicity and every nationality and every religion and every, philosophy as there are people in those things.
Yep.
And so like that is part of who we are, but it's not 100% a defining feature. It's just one of the many facets of each individual. And so to say like, oh yeah, here's the Mexican creator comic section. It's like, well, but also like, I want to know what that guy thinks about politics and existentialism and where was he raised and how did that affect him and what shows does he like and books has he read and all of the different facets of what makes a person is so reductive when you just take it down to like, well, this physical characteristic, that guy's a fat guy and that guy's a tall guy and that guy's a black guy. And it's like, well, that's a thing, there's so many other things, so many other variables that makes up a person.
Well, absolutely. And, I think after you've gone, and this is where I get kind of sad and get kind of, when people come to me a lot and say, I want to be an artist. I want that job. And it's like, okay, great. And it's not a job. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a practice. Literally, it's a practice. And you go through and you wake up every day and you figure out how do you wake up and create from nothing. And that's what a creator's job is making it up and creating from nothing. Mm-hmm. And if you're fortunate enough, you get to hang around a lot of, you find a good crowd and you can work off each other energetically. But at the end of the day, it's you, and if you're going to be using whatever you're looking at in the mirror as your excuse as to why you're not living into that, then you're not going to create much art. You're going to create a lot of excuses.
Oh, I love it.
It's really about, if you're going to create art, then create art. Make it go do it. Don't have that person and looking back in the mirror going, you do realize what our skin color is, right? You do realize what shape of my eyes are, what my hair shape is, or whatever it is. We can't do this, or we're going to get whatever it is. Don't ever have that be your excuse. If anything, if you want to have it be something, have it be your fuel. Have it move you, so that it's like, absolutely, I want to be, I want to honor Diego Rivera's contribution, even though he was kind of wacky, even though Frida was way out there, even though Picasso was, kind of a recluse, or, all these guys that had similar skin color to you that came before you, or even there now, like I said, I was talking with a buddy of mine last week, and we were talking about artists like John Leguizamo, or, even J-Lo, who I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times, or George Lopez. You have these Hispanic artists that are out there, and they've kind of starting to transcend that. You're not going to get all Latino stuff from these people. You're going to get art, and how you engage with it. You can see that it, obviously came from a Latino creator, but it's not necessarily, not only Latino dances to J-Lo stuff. Not way more, everybody laughs at John Leguizamo or George Lopez jokes, so it's not a only for this. I want to be, that's where I strive to be, and I hope that the difference I make or touches with that one person has them understand you're not defined by that person in the mirror. You're the definer of that person in the mirror.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think that's a good way to start. It's just kind of wrap it up. I mean, is there? I don't know. After that, is there anything else that before we start going around the room and closing everything out? Is there any other points or anything you wanted to make, Gene, or anything that we didn't touch on that you wanna briefly talk about?
No, I mean, one, I appreciate you guys. I think it's conversations like this that have, I would hope that have other artists go, you know what? It just takes jumping off and me figuring out, up that cliff by myself and figuring out how to have it happen on the way down. The cliff doesn't care what color you are. The cliff doesn't care, if you know how to sew a parachute, So define how big that cliff's going to be by yourself, because it's really up to you, and it's not really up to everything else. And it's the curse of the internet, it's the curse of information. It's like you have all this stuff, and most of the stuff is false anyway. So go out there for yourself, be a creator. It's the one thing we're here to do, and this is why I love your guys' show and all the people I get to meet and just kind of trolling around your guys' shows and stuff like that. It's like you guys have just like a plethora of really awesome creator people, and just kind of you take these little bits from people and you let that fuel you along the way, especially when you're if you're still in lockdown or still you got time, go learn about what other creators are up to, if you have that time during the day, and then go create something.
I love it. And that's the kind of stuff you get when you follow Gene on Instagram or social media.
Yeah.
A lot of that great stuff. So I know, Josh, I'm going to kick it back to you since it's on your channel. You could start wrapping things up.
I love it. Gene, as usual, just super inspiring. And I totally think you guys should be following Gene, because he's constantly posting kind of inspiring stuff as well. And he will make you, hopefully, some of this has opened the idea that you can't wait for permission or allow excuses to kind of stop you from pursuing a creative life, And I think every time we have Gene on, I feel pumped to get back to work on my stuff. So thank you so much. All right. Well, so you're on my channel. So if you guys haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and then also make sure you go to joshuakemble.com and you check out 2 stories, which you can check out there. It's at a really reduced rate on Amazon.com. It's my autobiographical comic that talks pretty openly about my journey with depression and caregiving for someone with panic disorder. And it kind of goes from childhood to adulthood. It's a very like heartfelt story. And you can also pre-order Jacob's Apartment, which I'm just gonna show off some of these for 2 seconds because I don't have a book to show yet. I should have shown the exclusive postcards, but look at that original inks of the cover.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that's coming out from Graphic Mundi in May, and so far, from what I hear from the publisher, reception's pretty good from like a press standpoint. So we'll hopefully see some reviews and stuff. But what helps to get the word out about that is for you guys to pre-order it and check it out, and you can do that going to either graphicmundi.org, or you can also do that just checking out my website, a link for that, and then. We're going to have, obviously, Scott close it out because he can tell you more info about the mailing list. Also, Frank had a real quick question that I did want to hit up, and maybe, Gene, you can help out with this. He was asking how many copies of a comic you should print up before a con, and I'm going to actually give the annoying answer for myself of who knows. I would probably do the math and figure out what you need to sell to make table, and then make sure that you're carrying that plus some so that you can at least – make back the money you've invested on doing your convention. You always want to be over prepared more than under prepared. But I would say if you're like doing a run of 1,000 and you're an unknown at like Artist Alley, it might be a little overshooting. Depending if you're doing San Diego, that might actually be about right. So I don't know, Gene, any suggestions on that?
Actually, that was probably the best advice. I would probably give the same. You know, it's like, if you're an independent, you're not going to have to haul that much. But what you do want to do is have something that you're going to be able to hand somebody, every single person that comes to your table.
Yes.
Know your convention, know what the, kind of get some history about it. They're going to give you the marketing spiel as far as, we have 250,000 people or 220,000 people come every year, so you're not going to hit all those people, but you want to have enough that, if you're going to get X amount of those people coming, make sure you have something there for them.
Oh yeah, and that's a really good one. Have giveaways too. Like make sure you have like postcards and stuff. And I will say, it works. Like LA Comic-Con, I handed out all these postcards, and honestly, like I was telling Gene, it's like you feel kind of like through the process, like it's an up and down experience, right? Like half of you, like you're trying to stay optimistic, but you're like, who knows where these postcards are going. And then I heard from my publisher that there's like 100 and something inquiries for galleys for the book for review. And like, that's pretty high for like an indie and like this early on in the process. And I think that's, and they think as well that a lot of that's just a direct result of like these flyers that I passed out at the con. So like, and again, like you never know who you're passing it to. So you might be passing it to somebody who works for like, comic book resources or like a larger review site, and like it's just a numbers game, and yeah, so Gene's dead on that.
And sometimes it only takes one person,
totally,
and you never know who that's going to be. So
yeah. Oh, and when you're building your career too, like that person could be an art director who will hire you. I definitely have had that experience from cons in the past. So Cory, where can everybody check out your stuff, check out your animations and all that fun stuff?
You can check me out at CoryKerr.com. And if you click on what's new or go to CoryKerr.com/online, you'll see all the social media things. Pretty active on Instagram lately, just kind of messing around with some stuff, and subscribe to me on YouTube because starting at the beginning of the year, I will be kind of live streaming this production of this animated short film that I'm doing. Also, I've got this shirt. I got some test runs of this shirt where
is that the freedom of speech one?
It's the freedom of speech First Amendment one. And so it's funny because all the liberals are like, oh man, the conservatives are going to get that for the wrong reason. And all the conservatives are like, oh, the liberals are going to get that for the wrong reason. And I'm like, how about everybody gets it? Because we should just listen to everybody. And people should have.
Yeah, I think freedom of speech is for everyone.
Yeah, I know, but right now everything's so politicized that everybody's looking at the shirt as a thing. But anyway, but it literally just lists, the 4 or 5 major points that it goes off of on the thing. So it is not political as much as the Constitution is not like party political. Anyway.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, I think I think we've got enough. Well, some people might argue, but I think we have enough Second Amendment stuff out there. Why not get some First Amendment stuff? Because that's a pretty important amendment.
That's why I did this. Actually,
Yeah.
I was getting my jean jacket going, and I had I was looking for some cool patches, and I'm like, dude, it was right during like the Black Lives Matter protests, and I was doing some animations about that and stuff, and I was like, it'd be cool to have like a First Amendment patch, you know. And every time I search for First Amendment patches, Second Amendment patches would come up. I'm like, there's so much cool looking stuff, but I'm like, the First Amendment is way cooler than the Second Amendment, and better understood from the populace, I think, because I think the Second Amendment gets massively misunderstood, and the last half of it gets ignored. But anyway, so I'm going to be releasing this as a T-shirt soon. So stay
I'm gonna have to
tuned
get
on those things, and you know, it's a fun one.
I love it.
Real quick, another reason to follow Cory's channel, and I'll talk
Yes.
about this again when I wrap things up, but next Artcasters will be on Cory's channel, and every third Artcasters will be on Cory's channel. So make sure you're subscribed to Cory's channel, or you're going to miss out on a third of the Artcasters.
Oh yes. And also, Cory, it's all about the Second Amendment. Don't tread on me. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
The thing that annoys me the most is there's
at least this is on your channel.
There's always some dude that gets on and is like, the First Amendment is protected by the Second Amendment. I'm like, I'm not arguing that. I just want people to be able to say stuff. Can you just shut up?
I love it. All right. Well, so anyhow, I'm sure that same guy is gonna love the topic of diversity in comics. But anyhow, so Gene, thank you so much for being on. Where can everybody find like where can they follow Tribal Force and be on the ground floor to make sure that like they can support it once the Kickstarter's up?
Get to our website, machinecomics.com. There's a link right there. It says join the war party. You actually get a free digital copy of the Downtown #1 when you join the war party, as well as a bunch of other cool, fun, free stuff. That way we can keep you in the loop. Like I said, we have a bunch of cool stuff in the pipeline, and would love just to share with as many people as possible. This Tribal Force is going to be a kick in the pants, and people are going to really stand up and take notice, because it's been a long time coming. John has done an amazing job of developing these characters, and I think people have been, especially early adopters and fans of Tribal Force, was wondering what happened to it. Well, this is what's happening to it now. So we're excited about it, and I'm just beyond geeking out at Cory's art right now. It's so awesome, so cool. But machinecomics.com, and we're on Instagram at machine_comics, comics with an X. Yep, just the X, but we like the X. And so that's where we are, and looking forward to showing everybody what we got in the next several years.
Awesome, that's so exciting.
I'm digging the new the preview images and stuff for the new Tribal Force and some of the new characters and stuff. I mean, it looks really great. I can't wait.
And we got merch too. Woohoo! Wait, gotta go with that. There's our merch.
Yeah, you got to talk about that. Oh wow, that's cool.
Awesome.
That's cool. I love that Aztec look. That's very cool.
Yeah. So this is Jaguar Knight. He's one of the new characters, Mesoamerican warrior, spirit warrior, and it's, like I said, John's really done a great job of encompassing a lot of native indigenous cultures into the.
So awesome.
The team. Yeah.
I think that's going to be the hit character right there. It looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, "You're kidding, right?" He's a yeah, it's going to be cool.
I love it. That's awesome. Before we go to Scott, also, if people were curious about like fine art stuff too, where can they check that out?
Oh yes, so artofgene.com. You can also go to Artist Gene, which is my Linktree page, basically, or some kind of a Linktree page. Artistgene.com has links to my fine art, the comic book work, my photography work. I have NFTs up there, and just a lot of links and stuff that I kind of am about. So you can find everything, linked from my social media, Instagram, a lot of people follow me on Instagram just because, well, I have a lot of students, and so I have a lot. They have younger brothers and sisters, and some of them are having kids now, which is making me feel really old. But
that is a weird thing when that happens.
it's bizarre, man. But you know, people are constantly asking me for, you know, hey, I have a son or daughter that wants to get into art or wants to, you know, do this. What should I do? I said, put as much crayons in their room and within their reach as possible, and don't say anything. You know, authentically, don't say anything, because, you know, from a creator's mind, you know, especially when parents or some authority says something, they're going to go the opposite way, which is kind of our culture, you know. So just put it in their hands and say, do whatever you want, go for it, you know. Give people some freedom to think what they want to think and make up what they want to think, you know. And you got to teach them to think for themselves, you know. So it's okay to, you know, people contact me all the time. So I love talking with people when they have kids that are showing interest in art. Like, what should we do? I'm like, let them do it. Let them figure it out. You know, they're going to need to figure it out some way. There's no, you guys all know, there's no set template for being an artist.
Yeah.
So you gotta really allow people to be, you know, kind of make it up on their own and go with it.
I love that, and that makes me want to reinforce this idea that this experiment I'm thinking about doing when my son's a little older, where I want to recreate the Satanic Panic to get him into like metal and punk rock. So I was just thinking, because if I'm like, this music's awesome, he'll just immediately not want to hear it. But if I'm like, hey, this album, like if you listen to it, it's going to open a portal of hell. You can't listen to it. I'm just going to leave it right here though. But just don't listen to it, whatever you do. Anyhow, so Scott, this is the craziest channel now. It bounces from 3 different channels, 3 different art channels, which hopefully everybody's subscribed to. But also, it's going to be hard to keep track. Like next week, is it going to be on Cory's channel? Is it going to be on your channel? How can we keep track of that? And before that, also, where can I get like crazily discounted art products that you
I was about to say, what, you're not going to let me promote my stuff?
No, screw your stuff, Scott. Just talk about the Artcasters. No, I'm just kidding. But like, what you have a 50% off promotion that you're still leaving up?
It's not necessarily on purpose, but I haven't had a chance to take it down because it's supposed to be for 1 week only, which but I do plan on taking it down soon. So if you're watching this, you know, now or maybe a couple days later, maybe one, I don't know, it may still be up there. Go and check. I mean, they'll still be on sale. I'm not going to put them back full price, but they probably won't be 50% off for long. But all my digital products right now at Serkland.com, the Comic Maker Toolkit, the Hero Design Studio, the Amazing Comic Book World Builder, all of that stuff, plus my digital versions of my comics, and there's a few fonts and up there, everything. Those are all 50% off on my website, so go check that out. It's under the downloads link. And yeah, besides that, I do have an event coming up at Surprise Comics in Arizona. That's on the 22nd. It's a Wednesday, and I'll be just doing sketches and stuff like that. So, you know, if you happen to be in the area, come and get some sketches. They make great Christmas presents, stocking stuffers, whatever. So definitely check that out. And yeah, let's see what else. Yeah, like Josh mentioned, this show, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week, and it rotates back and forth and around between the 3 of us. That's Cory, that's Josh, that's myself. And so, yeah, the order is me, then Josh, then Cory, and then back to me. That can get a little confusing, so if you don't want to be confused, best way to know exactly whose channel it's going to be on, who the guest is going to be, what the topic's going to be, is join our mailing list. And if you're already on our mailing list, then you know that you just got an email today talking, letting you know that Gene was going to be on, letting you know the topic, all that stuff. So that's the best way to do it, because YouTube doesn't always notify people when the show goes live. So definitely do that. We try to send that out about 30 minutes before we go live, at least. So yeah, join the mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. And I want to thank Gene, and I want to thank the chat. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being here again next week.
All right, awesome. And with that, we will see you guys all next week. Oh, I also wanted to give a special shout out to Frank Salazar for being a rad mod during this. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out his stuff for doing the due diligence of like doing a good job modding our chat. All right, guys. We will see you guys on the next week, and it'll be on Cory's channel. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to Cory, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Later.